Hey guys, I wanted to show you a feature I discovered in with this new Maxer Live device called KeySwitch and Expression Map editor. And I went into some detail on how to use this thing and how useful it is if you're composing for if you're doing orchestral type instruments and using big sample libraries in Kontakt. You really need some capability for doing key switching, and this is a feature that's not included with it's not built into Live. Now it is built in to Cubase and Logic and Digital Performer as well, and lately in version 5 Studio One implemented key switching. And in fact, I subscribe to Studio Live, and they just upgraded about a few days ago, I think, to version 5.2. And part of the upgrade is kind of an expansion of this of their key switch editor. Okay. Having said that, as I said in my other video, or maybe I didn't, um, as much as I like uh, Studio One, uh, it doesn't work for me. And the main reason for that is that uh, it doesn't seem to work well on my system with Vienna Ensemble Pro. And I couldn't figure out why that is, you know, but it seems very buggy, and I had a lot of crashes. And so for me, using Vienna Ensemble Pro to kind of offload all these big sample libraries onto a slave computer is really a really important part of my workflow, at least the workflow I'm trying to develop, with a big template. So yeah, that's my experience with Studio One. Now, other people it might work beautifully, it might be stable on their systems, I don't know. But for me, all I can tell you is my experience was it didn't work well. And on the other hand, Live seems on my system works flawlessly with VEP7. And I suspect you're going to find the same thing if you go this route. In any event, without getting too far afield, just trying to give you a little background into kind of my larger vision for all these, how to integrate all these tools into something that enables someone who wants to compose with these sample libraries in Kontakt. I mean, that's what this is all about. That's the end game, right? So I've got just one instance of Kontakt open, and in fact, yeah. Let me delete this track here. We don't need that. Okay. In fact, let me delete this MIDI track. I'm going to try to, yeah. Okay, so we're stripped down to make it as simple as possible. I'm in the session view, and I've got one track. It's a MIDI track. On that track, I've got Kontakt loaded. Okay, and you can see here, the bottom right, I've got the Kontakt instrument, the VSTI, loaded here. And then before it, I've got this KeySwitch and Expression Map. Now, I've renamed it, so don't get confused. You'll see this blue strip. It says KeySwitch Albion 1 Brass, because that's I put in some information here, so I want to save that out. But this box here is well, I close the settings. This little rectangle here, this device, this is the KeySwitch and Expression Map editor that is so vital and indispensable to composing with big libraries in Ableton. It really opens up Ableton as a serious, as a DAW that you can effectively use for this type of these type of instruments and libraries. Okay. All right. So as you probably know, most libraries in Kontakt, most of these orchestral instrument libraries, and a lot of other types of libraries as well, but particularly the orchestral instruments, what they do is they assign articulations to key switches. So they'll start at the bottom of the keyboard like -1, -C1, -C#2, and they'll assign these to different patches or articulations, whatever you want to call them. But there are also libraries that don't really use the key switch system, and instead they just give you a whole series of patches or different instruments, and each one is in a sense, each one is an articulation. But I mean, how do you easily go from one to another? I mean, so take a look at here, this Albion. It's got brass high, long octave, brass high, long, brass high, short octave, brass high, short, brass low, long, nasty, brass low, long, and so on and so forth. They've got the shorts in there too. So typically in most libraries, these would be all under one patch, and each one would be assigned a particular key, usually at the low register of the keyboard, and you'd switch through these things by pressing a key, or if you have a DAW, that has like a key map type editor, you'd put it in there. You get the idea, okay? But with libraries like this Albion 1, you can't do that. These different patches are not assigned to keys. Now, I have seen people that kind of go into the script, and apparently, I think I saw one video, and this fellow figured out how to like actually assign a key, but man, that was just too complicated for me. Okay, so I'm going to show you a much simpler way, and it just involves get a hold of this key switch and mapping, key switching and expression map editor, this Max for Live device. I'll put a link to the developer's website, and you can go. It's very inexpensive. I think it's, I don't know, 20, 25, 30 bucks. It's a drop in the hat, and it's going to give you so much capability. It's just a no-brainer. You want to get this thing. That's my plug for him. So anyway, yeah. So you see all these different instruments in Albion, but if we loaded each one of these things in, I mean, how are we going to use that effectively? I mean, we're going to have to switch, tracks, or I mean, I can't. It just doesn't. It's not going to work. But with this instrument bank editor, all you've got to do is basically you open up your library, and then you drag these patches in right onto the instrument bank. And by the way, you've got 127 of these slot. I'm sorry, 128. So that's a ridiculous amount of slots you've got there. You're not going to run out. So in this case, I loaded in 10, and you can see them here. So now I want to direct your attention to these numbers. It says 001, 002. What these numbers are, these are program change numbers. That's all they are. Program change numbers have been around from like the beginning of synthesizers, right? I mean, before we got into DAWs and all that kind of thing, you'd have these switches on your keyboard synthesizer, and there would be like program changes. So you could, if you had an old Korg M1 or a Roland D50. You know, you could change instruments. And these things were, you know, were given numbers. Well, you know, that's a MIDI message. It's a program change is a type of MIDI message, and that's what Kontakt is doing here. This instrument bank is nothing more than the old-fashioned, you know, system that was on just about every synth you could lay your hands on for program changes. Now, you might also recall that some of these instruments, like I remember having a Yamaha K something or other, I don't know, it was like a modular type synth, and they would have banks. I think Roland had that too. So they had so many instruments that 128 different program changes, which I think was the maximum you could have under MIDI, wasn't enough for all the instruments they had, because you know, a lot of these things had like a few hundred patches. So what they did was they'd have a bank. So if you wanted to go to, like, let's say play a xylophone, the banks might be under the percussion instruments might be under bank 3, and the xylophone might be, you know, program change number 10, something like that. You get the idea, right? But looking at this Kontakt, you know, the instrument bank in Kontakt, you don't have any banks. You don't need to worry about that. It's just, it's very, very straightforward, okay? You have 128 slots, and these are going to respond to program changes. So if you send a program change number 10 to Kontakt, it's going to switch to the 10th, to number 10 in the you know, over here on the bank. So you're going to see this in a second. All right. So what I did was I created, you know, I loaded in a new instrument bank. I dragged in these brass instruments. There were 10 of them. I dragged in all 10 brass instruments, and I just put them onto these slots. Okay. And I loaded in my KeySwitch and Expression Map editor. Now, I'm going to go under the settings, and you're going to see how wonderfully simple this is. So instrument number 1 is in the Albion. You'll see here on the left side with the library is brass high long octave. So I loaded brass high long octave into slot number 1. So that's going to respond to program change number 1. So on my KeySwitch editor, I just typed in brass high long octave. Okay, you just type in the name of the patch, and then all you've got to do on the right, on the bottom right here, you'll see it says program. Well, I've entered 1, so it doesn't say program now, but it says you just put the program number. So that's going to correspond, whatever number is up here in the instrument bank in Kontakt, that's the number that you put in here. And you just go through these. So there are 10 instruments here, and I just typed in the 10 instruments, and I typed in 1 through 10 into this into the PGM, the program number. That's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. Okay? So how do we use this thing? All right. Let me go to my I made a little a very, very simple little clip here. Little MIDI clip. I've got four notes in this 1-bar MIDI clip. Okay, you see them. I'll make them try to make them as big as possible. Okay, there we go. Okay, C4, A3, F3, C4. Okay, now what you're going to want to do is on this second tab you have the clip view. So you go to this clip view, and under envelopes you're going to have to select the the correct device for the key switch envelope. So you're going to select key switch Albion 1 brass. Well, in my case, that's what it's called now because I renamed it, okay? But you're going to see, it's just going to say KeySwitch and Expression Map Editor. So you select that, and then you select up here, there are 3 of them. One is just using 9 key switches, one is 18, one's 27. So I had to use the 18 because we had 10 instruments here, so I couldn't use the 9. So you hit the key switch. And that's going to bring up this lane, and here you can see at the bottom my first node, and I've got it set to brass high long octave, which is number 1. That's program change. That's the first instrument. And then the second, you drag these nodes up to the instrument you want, and they're right there. They change, and you can see them as clear as day. And you just enter in your node and you select the instrument you want, and that's it. That is it. Okay, so let's yeah, you don't, what I had selected the whole envelope. You don't want to do that because it's going to drag up, it's going to drag everything with it. So you just want to select one node, and then you'll be able to switch it. Okay, just like that. Okay, so let's hear it. Let me change this note. Okay, so let me slow this down a little bit. So as each note plays, I gave each note I assigned to a separate patch or separate instrument, and you can actually watch them switch up here in Kontakt. So watch the next note. It's going to it switches to the 3rd patch, then it goes back to the 1st patch. So let me change the patch on the 4th quarter note, or the 4th note. There we go. So that's all there is to it. So you can see each note is assigned to a different patch. So okay, so it's just like having key switches where you're getting different instrument sounds, but actually in a way this is simpler. I mean, you're just, first of all, entering these things is simpler because you don't have to type in, instead of typing like C# -1, you just type in the program number. You're just typing in numbers here. Usually just 1-digit numbers will give you like up to 9 instruments. So I mean, all you got to do is just type in the name of the patch and then type in the number of the slot, and that's it. You're good to go. I mean, what really surprises me is that there are hardly any YouTube videos, and there's not much in Google either on using this Kontakt Instrument Bank facility. And I'm scratching my head. I don't understand it, because now all of a sudden, I used to shy away from these types of libraries like Albion 1 because it was like, yeah, I could pick out one instrument, one or two, but I'd have to assign them to like separate instruments, right? Uh, and you know, it wasn't very practical. But now, you know, this opens up a whole new capability here, and now I can very effectively use these these libraries with like these individual patches. In fact, uh, what's interesting is that you can there's certain libraries, and not necessarily orchestral libraries, but take a look at this air library I have, right? uh, I'll go under, look at all these instruments you have here. Okay, so I could create a new instrument bank, right? And in order to see the slots, you just click on that wrench, right? And I could start loading in these different patches, right, into my instrument bank, and I can do the same thing that we just did with Albion 1. I can have, it's essentially like having the old, Korg M1, where, you'd be able to switch instruments on the fly, but just, hitting a button press. Well, in this case, you can program these things in with this KeySwitch and Expression Map editor. And then the last thing I just wanted to kind of highlight is that this, this lets you audition the different instruments. So, if you have like an instrument like air, you can try out, and you might have, like, if you're using, you have a MIDI clip that's like 8 bars long, and you're in the arrange view, all right, you're not going to change, it's generally speaking, you're not going to want to change instruments like on every beat, which I've done here. I just did that for illustrative purposes. But you're going to go into your arrange view, and this might be one of the steps that you take towards the end of your production. But you go into the arrange view, and you load in something like this, and then you can audition like these different instruments. You might go like 2 bars with one instrument, and then on the third bar, you want to go to a different patch, and you might do that for another 2 bars. You kind of, you get the idea, right? So I think I've rediscovered Kontakt. I feel like Kontakt just has gotten a brand new life in it, and I'm really digging it. But I couldn't do it without this KeySwitch and Expression Map editor. So that's basically it. I think I've given you a pretty good idea. If you go back to my first video, you'll see me entering like key switches into the Expression Map editor, and but basically, this is the same thing. There's really, you're going to enter the name of the instrument, and then the only difference is with key switching, you're going to put like the note name, like C0, you're going to put that into this box. Whereas if you're using the Kontakt Instrument Bank, you're just going to put it into the program, the box that says PGM program, okay? Which, by the way, as I said, is less work. So you can do this very, very rapidly. And the next thing I want to explore, and maybe I'll come back and do a video on this, or maybe someone else will beat me to the punch, is I think that you can use this KeySwitch and Expression Map editor. I think you're going to be able to use this on certain. In fact, I'll go out on a limb and say most uh, most instrument plugins. Like I'm wondering, you should be able to use this thing on like Massive and Serum and all the instruments like that. And so that opens up a nice capability. You don't have to. This is not exclusive to just using Kontakt and Kontakt libraries. So maybe I've got to experiment with that a little bit. I haven't done that yet, but we'll see what happens with that. But in any event, I hope this shows you what you can do, and I'm a real advocate for Ableton Live. I think since version 11 has got just so many great capabilities, and I think it deserves a long, hard look before you jump into, before you assume that Cubase or Logic are like the only two DAWs for people that want to do like this type of composing. I'm suggesting you take a long, hard look at Live, because I think you're going to find that the features it has with the the session view and clips and chunks, being able to move these things around, and the ease of use, and the ease of recording. I think Live, the way it's so easy to record in Live, especially in MIDI clips, and now they have the new facility, the new they added on the new comp recording. Oh man, that's out of sight. So yeah, that's my plug for Live and my plug for KeySwitch and Expression Map. And I hope you guys, I hope this helps you make some great music. Okay, take care. See you next time.